I want to welcome you to the Australian Tapping Institute, the EFT Tapping Training Community, and what we do, how we deliver, and the information, and just information I love to share with you. I'm all things EFT tapping. I'm very much about how do you utilize tapping, how do you get the most out of it, how do you help your clients. We are one of the premier schools in Australia and one of the only online schools across the world that teaches EFT tapping the way that we do it. Super, super, super proud of that. But what I want to be able to do is to help other people figure out how you're going to help your clients to overcome all sorts of events. At the moment, our focus is talking about trauma. We're about to release, oh, can you see my nose? Goodness, sorry. About to release our trauma course, which is going to go public, which is very exciting. Our EFT tapping refresher courses. So things going on. And as you know, I get a little bit on the excited side. So forgive me and my excitement, because that's just who I am and how I roll. So questions. We have collected questions from the page. We've collected questions that people have signed in, even some of the ones that come from some of our students, our EFT practitioner students who have asked questions. Now, this topic is how to heal from difficult or traumatic experiences. And this is the focus is how for you to heal, but also from your clients. So, alrighty, we're just going to roll through them. There is a number of them here, so I'm just going to answer them for you so you have the responses there. Are there any precautions or considerations that I should keep in mind before attempting EFT tapping for trauma healing? Any considerations or things you could keep in mind, precautions? So I guess when we're doing our own healing and we're doing our own trauma healing, and now that's big T, little t trauma, let's not differentiate here. Anything that's had an impact in your life and is affecting you still comes under the little banner of trauma or the big banner of trauma. So to heal from that stuff, absolutely. So let's talk precautions. Let's talk considerations. I believe that when we do tapping on ourselves, we can go to a certain level all by ourselves before the brain goes, I'm out of here. And what I mean by it checks out and it goes, I'm out of here, is suddenly getting on your phone is very important. Making a cup of tea is very important. Things that are just really instant distractors become very important very suddenly when we're doing our own healing work. Now, why that is, the human brain has one job and one job only, and that is to keep us safe. Whether it's a perceived threat, a real threat to the physical organism, physical body that we own, the brain has that one job, all right? So what it will do is, in certain instances in certain people's lives, it will bury those memories away. It will give different meaning to it. It'll pack it away. It'll do whatever it needs to do to keep you safe so that you don't stay in the trauma. While some people do stay in the trauma, it's the ability to kind of move us out of the trauma best we can so that we can live normal functional lives. Yep. So that's what your brain's job is. So when you have a really traumatic thought, a really traumatic memory, a really traumatic event that's happened, to some level, the brain's going to dissociate from that. So when you're doing your tapping and doing your own healing work, you will get to a certain level where you'll be able to do it yourself. Then I would highly recommend you engage an expert in the field to work with you. Now, I do a lot of work with sexual trauma victims and survivors. I shouldn't call them victims. They are survivors. They are moving through it and they were healing through it. It's big work, and I recognize how big work it is. So there may be times where you have to come and find someone like myself, so a practitioner such as myself, or head to australiantappinginstitute.com.au. We have a Find a Practitioners tab, loads of our graduate practitioners that can help you as well. Find someone to work through what the extra stuff is. Oh, my nose is going to bug me today. The extra layers of the healing and the layers of the event that you need to work through. So the considerations will be, when you get to a certain ceiling and you can't seem to get through, go and find a practitioner to work with. Precautions for yourself. Be very mindful of tackling the biggest event or the biggest trauma or the biggest impacted event in your life head on right at the start. Even as a practitioner, we would do some level of sneaking up on topics, because we would use different techniques. It might be the movie technique. It might be the sneaking up technique. We would do all sorts of techniques we would use to get a level of calm in the body and a level of, to remove some of the resistance before we go headlong into the actual event itself. So that would be my tips on that one. How long does it typically take to notice significant progress or relief when using tapping for trauma recovery? One session of EFT, and I'm talking about you sitting down with your journal for 5 or 10 minutes, will bring you relief that quickly when you're focused on a specific event. The caveat, I guess, to this is when you're working on a specific event, this one thing happened on a Thursday afternoon 10 years ago and you remember it vividly, stay focused on that event. If you're going to do the tapping on that, stay focused on that. If you make it a whole day thing, as in this thing happened and it happened and it happened and it went across multiple hours and all the rest of it, you're going to dilute the impacts. So for the maximum impact, come to that one event and you will do tapping on that one event, that one thing. Keep about a 5-minute block of the thing. Pick the most intense part of the thing. So whatever the event was, what was the worst part? I know there might be lots of worst parts. What was the worst part about that actual event, that actual thing that happened? And tap on that. So a couple of minutes just tapping just on that part and release that. All right. So that's when we start talking about how quick can you get relief. It can be that fast, 5 or 10 minutes, but you've got to get specific. You've got to get very focused. Nothing global, nothing this thing that happened with Grandma Sally 10 years ago. It's got to be on the Thursday afternoon when Grandma Sally pulled me by the hair and shouted at me, blah, 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 whatever it is. Okay, whatever it is. Get specific. So that's how long it can, that's how quick it can work if you're specific on it. All right, now, have you found EFT tapping to be useful for managing ongoing or chronic trauma-related symptoms, such as anxiety or into our PTSDs? Tapping absolutely can be very, very beneficial for both of those and many other topics as well. What will happen when you get to the trauma is you will start to move through different layers of it. What will often happen is when we start to move through traumas and impacts in our life, we get a space where it's, well, it came back. How did it come back? What's happening is the actual incident or the actual intensity, the actual reaction to you didn't come back for that incident. What is happening is a different layer or a different aspect to that is popping its head up. So you absolutely can use it for those more chronic symptoms. But again, think of it in layers. You've got to take it off by the layers. You wouldn't go, if you've got some PTSD from something substantial that happened, you wouldn't go right to it. You'll do the layers. You'll do the layers. You might do tapping on, it may be something that even just thinking about that thing can bring you some level of reaction in your body. So you do tapping on that. Even when I thinking about looking at that thing that happened to me, my body reacts. And it comes in my stomach or it comes in my chest, and the intensity is whatever the intensity is, and I'm just going to accept that that's where I'm at. Even though I have this body reaction to this event that happened, even thinking about the event without even working on the event impacts my body. I'm going to accept that's where I am and process it slowly. So you want to do things like that. You want to start working through things, even the chronic stuff, very, very slowly in layers, and you'll be able to get there. Are there any specific EFT tapping techniques or variations that you find particularly effective for addressing deep-seated or complex traumas? All right, so as a practitioner, I have, all of the practitioners that we train have a number of tools and techniques that they would use if it is, what was the words it said? A deep-seated or a complex trauma. We have a number of them. So when we think of deep-seated stuff or complex stuff, we think if it's been there for a long time, it's very, very impactful on the life. So we would use a number of different techniques. I would, if I was working with you, I would be looking at some level of, I call it sneaking up techniques, but what it basically is to find out what the level of intensity is when you start thinking about the event before we're even into resolving the event, what's happening on the surface. So we would use that sort of thing. Let's call it a sneaking up technique. Then we would use another technique known as the movie technique. Now, the movie technique allows me to work with you without you even telling me the details of what went on. Some people find like what has happened to them embarrassing and shameful, and they just can't even imagine talking to someone. So we use these techniques over the top before we even get into them. So yeah, there are some techniques. I love the techniques. I love it for people's privacy because they don't need to divulge details to me. We deal with the event and then we deal with the shame. We sort of separate them out and deal with them quite separately. But yeah, so they would be my most effective techniques. Now, if you're doing it on yourself, obviously a movie technique where you're running a movie in your head and not telling anyone is different because there's nobody there with you. You could just run the movie yourself though. 3 to 5 minute little movie. This happened. Grandma pulled me by the hair when I was 10. That little bit of a snippet there, what happened on that day, and just tap on that. She pulled me by the hair. I was terrified. She really upset me. She scared me when she grabbed me. It really hurt. She frightened me when she was so angry. Whatever it is about that little part of the movie, and just tap on that. Obviously, I'm verbalizing. You can run the movie in your head as well. So they would be the best techniques that we would use, as I said, as practitioners. And if you're working on yourself, to go through something that is, the deep-seated and the complex traumas. And again, take them layer by layer, okay? Don't go head on into the big stuff on your own straight off the bat. Do it in layers. What role does self-compassion and self-care play in the effectiveness of EFT tapping for addressing difficult experiences? Self-compassion, very much, if you're going to do your own work as a person doing EFT tapping, self-compassion will very much come into play. And I'd love you to consider and stick. Make sure you do this, is what I'm trying to say. Make sure you come from a place of deep compassion for yourself. Something that's specifically traumatic, it's very upsetting, isn't something you should be berating yourself about. It isn't something you should be giving yourself a hard time about. It's not something that you should be really being mean to yourself if you can't clear it at all. I worked with a beautiful client last night, and after the session, she sent me an apology for being crying ugly. And as I said to her, because it was a phone consult, how do I know you were crying ugly? And while I laughed with her about it to try and break the tension, what I also recognised was she was so upset because she'd cried. When we do this, be kind to yourself when you're doing the tapping work. Recognise that it's going to come in layers. Recognise that there's some times when you're going to come up against an issue, an event, and you're just going to want to be mean to yourself, and you should be over this, and it's not where I should be, and have all sorts of really negative things that you say to yourself in and around the actual event, right? So be kind to yourself with that. Take the time with it. Give yourself the time to do the tapping, whether you set aside 5 or 10 minutes a day. I mean, you've got 24 hours and you only need to find 10 minutes. Set aside those 10 minutes a day to sit and actually do tapping on something. So that would be my hints for that one. Make sure you give yourself time. Make sure you're kind to yourself if it's not going as fast as you would like, or you find yourself getting blocked. Again, you can always come and work with a practitioner like myself. Unlike other sort of more talk therapies, you don't get stuck in therapy forever. We work with you for a couple of sessions. You could go off and do some work on your own, come back when you get some blocks. Tapping works brilliantly like that. Do 2, 3, 4 sessions with someone and then go and do some work on yourself. It's created as a self-help tool, so you don't need to be stuck in therapy forever if you're going to work with an EFT practitioner. So that's what you want to be doing in terms of looking after yourself, in showing self-compassion, self-care. Make sure it is a self-care part of the routine. And yeah, no beating yourself up, no being mean, I should have been over this by now. Nothing like that at all. You want to avoid all of that. All right. Are there any specific types of trauma or emotional challenges that EFT can be particularly well suited to, or less effective when addressing them? Interesting. Specific traumas or challenges. I know that EFT works on everything. Now, when the founder said that, it works on absolutely everything. I'm going like, yeah, really? How so? Here is how so. Here is how it works on absolutely everything. When we look at upsetting memories and we look at emotional challenges and things, what we're focused on is, what does the body say? Where is the body retaining that information? Where is the body retaining the impacts of that? Where is the body reacting when you have a thought or a memory about that particular event? All right. So if you can really focus in on your body and focus in on how your body reacts, and you can do your tapping there, there's probably not very much that you can't get into and can't get under, or with a practitioner in your life using tapping. All right. Less effective stuff. Is there anything that's less effective? So I suppose if you're not getting specific with the event, or you're not getting specific with the emotion around the event that happened, the emotion that comes up, the story you told yourself or tell yourself about it, and where that shows up in the body, if you're not tapping on those parts of the modality of it, it's not going to be very effective because it's too global. You need to focus in on where it is in the body, what's the emotion behind it, what's the story you tell yourself, what's the impact. When you start to focus in there, you will be able to get underneath the issue and start to clear it little by little. Remember, an onion, you will be able to clear it. So that would be my I suppose, caveat or my information regarding when it's less effective. If it's not working, it's because you're not on the emotion, you're not on the event, you're not on the worst part of the event, the biggest shock value of the event. You're not on that. And that's where you need to refocus, look at your journal, look at where your information's coming from that you've written, to know what the most specific part of that is. Okay, next one. Have you encountered any challenges or setbacks while using tapping for trauma healing, and how have you overcome them? Have I found any setbacks or challenges? My main challenges, I guess, and I see this in my clients as well, is the brain's resistance to go deep into a specific trauma, the brain's resistance to wanting to face the thing, and possibly the third part of that is not wanting to take ownership. I have this a lot with my clients as well. They don't necessarily want to see the other side, or they don't want to see the other person's other side of it. They don't want to focus on the part that they have to change. There can be often a lot of blame, a lot of fault, and giving it to them, and they're doing this, and that's why I did it. There's a lot of that goes around. So there would be the challenges that I have faced personally myself. I go to my counsellor and I say to her quite openly, I want to be anywhere on the planet but here with you right now, because I know what we're going to work on, or I know what we're going to face, or I know what's come up and is really, I don't want to have to deal with it. I'd really like to focus over here. So they would be the setbacks and challenges that I have personally. I then also have that seen it with my clients. So my advice would be, determine how important it is to get over things. For me, it's vitally important for me to live my best life and to remove the triggers and the traumas and not have to show up in relationship with men so I can have the most beautiful partner in my life without my sword and my shield and being attacking and all the stuff that I do. I love the fact that I can go to my counsellor and I can work on them. So if you're not getting past things and you're finding the challenges and the setbacks, come and talk to someone like me. Come and do a couple of sessions. Come and work on the resistance and why you're so resistant to wanting to shift it, because shifting it's beautiful. Shifting it will change your life, but we can come up with resistance at times. Are there any particular, so next one, are there any particular emotional or physical symptoms I've noticed improvements in after practicing EFT for trauma healing? Are there any particular emotional or physical symptoms I've noticed improvements in after doing EFT? I would say that I have probably found through my trauma healing, every single session I've done, and whether it's been a session with my counsellor or a session with myself going through my own stuff, every single session I do has an impact, has a shift, has a change, has a and it may be subtle, and it may be as simple as the thought or the memory that I was having no longer pops into my head. And I might not even realize that that no longer pops into my head until weeks later. It's like, I haven't thought of such and such anymore. Curious. So they would be the noticeable improvements. You may notice, depending on what it is, instant improvement. I just feel so much lighter. I don't feel so emotional. I don't feel like crying. I don't feel tense. Or it may be a little bit more subtle, and it may show up in a period of time afterwards. All right, coming to the end of them. What are some common mistakes or pitfalls that people should be aware of when attempting to do tapping for trauma recovery? Beautiful question. Whoever wrote that question, that's freaking awesome. Common mistakes or pitfalls. The most common mistake is staying too general and not getting specific. Not getting specific on the actual emotion that you're thinking or the emotion you're feeling about that event. Not going to the most impactful part of it, i.e. the shock value. Shock value might be the wrong word, but not getting to that shock value of something that happened. Give you an example. Someone's in a car accident. If I'm in a car accident and you're in a car accident, the shock value or the shock impact, the worst part of it, may be different for you than for me. Say I'm a parent and I've got a child in the car. The shock value might not be the impact of the accident and I'm laying there. It may be suddenly, where's my child? It may be for somebody else, they saw the car coming towards them. It may be they heard the noise of tyres screech. It may have been the glass smack. You don't know what it is. So if you're doing the work on yourself on an event, get really into what was the worst part of that event. What was it? It could have been, there was blood. It could have been anything. Doesn't matter what it was, but you want to get into the actual specifics and the shock value of the actual thing that happened. Now, the pitfalls. What are some of the pitfalls we can have with tapping? Staying too general again, and then going, oh, well, it doesn't work for me. It works for everybody else. It doesn't work for me. You've got to get specific on your stuff. Another pitfall I find with people is they go onto YouTube or they go onto the internet and they think that videos they find on there on trauma are going to help them. And let me share with you why they don't. Just like the car accident example, we have different parts that are the part that was the biggest impact. We are all going to have different words. We are all going to have different emotions that show up. We are all going to have different impacts that come up when we've had a traumatic event. So if you're going to go onto the YouTube and do stuff there, it's not going to hit the mark. It's been scripted. We have lots of time to script stuff. People like me who put stuff on YouTube. We have lots of time to script it, get the right words and make sure we peel the right emotions. But for you doing it on your own, they might not be yours. So come away from YouTube when you're doing your own trauma healing and do your own work on your own body. Now, you may just have, say you just have a tightness in the chest and you've got no emotion. You can easily tap on this tightness in my chest. I have no idea what it's trying to tell me. I have no idea what the emotion is. I know what the event was. I have no idea what I'm feeling. I have no idea what I should be feeling. I just know my body is reacting. You can do tapping as simple as that. Do a couple of rounds on that, very, very simply, and that you can help to unpick some of the stuff for yourself. All right, we must be getting close to time. Oh, we are good. Okay, last one. How does tapping impact the relationship between the mind and the body in the context of trauma? How beautiful is that? How does tapping impact the relationship between mind and body? All right. We teach our students to get their clients to be very connected to the body. My philosophy is the mouth will lie and the brain will lie. The body never lies. Someone can say to you, no, I'm fine. And their body is tightening, it is twisting, their stomach's going, their throat's glumming up, whatever it is. The body doesn't lie. So when we're doing work to relieve and reduce the physical impacts on the body, we want to be focused on what the body reactions are. So we know that there is such a mind-body connection. We can all feel it. Great example, you hear, in traffic and there's a horn beeps. There's very few of us that don't bzz in our energy system. We don't have some sort of little reaction in our energy circuitry in our body. And it may just feel like a really tight buzz. It may just feel like, because what's happening is in your brain, the adrenaline and cortisols and all that sort of stress response, fight or flight, boom, has released straight into your bloodstream. That feels like a physical sensation of buzz in my body. I'm sure everybody feels it, but I don't know what intensity. That's just how I explain it. So if you're recognizing that that's what it is, and you have this horn beeps in the car and it's just a horn, it can't hurt me, it's just a horn, it's just a big noise, just a big noise. All right, just a big noise. So you can do some tapping in the moment on those, but the mind-body context, you've got to be focused on that. You've got to be mindful of it. They are together. The brain will tell you one thing that the body will not. So get into your body. Now, I've just had a couple of more questions sent through that I need to read to you. Okay, so our beautiful Maud, blah, 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 blah. No, not from Maud. Not sure who this is from. Beautiful. Okay. Trying to address the terror experience of being abused as a child. I'm sorry to hear this, Maud. Working with therapists. Quite hard to bring the emotion sensations to zero since it went so far in her brain. She doesn't feel in her body anymore. Okay, is there a better way to address the issues, to work with emotions that are so strong than to bring them to the surface? Okay. So for someone like this particular question, it's a very, very, very detailed question. Someone who is dissociating, they're working with a therapist, they're finding it hard to bring the emotions and the sensations down to zero, because it was fairly intense what they've written that they had go on. All right, so for someone like that, so someone who is dissociated, where you're going to start is, where I would start with someone is, I would want to start to get them to simply feel their body, not even go into the event, not even have anything that remotely goes into the event, but just get them to get out of their head, because the head's where the problem's been created, and into their body. And it may be simple tapping if it's for you, and it may be simple as going to drop out of my head. I want to feel into my body. What do sensations in my body feel like? What do they feel like? I can feel into my body. What do I feel? And just feel get them to feel into their body, or if it's you, get yourself to feel into your body so that you can start to bring things out of the head so that we can relieve it in the body, because that's where you're going to be able to do that work. Once you've got them out of their head and into their body, you can then start to work on the regulation of what they've got going on. You can start to then look at some of the gentler techniques, the sneaking up technique, the movie technique, to be able to help them to start to delayer the event without taking them into the event, because going straight into that event is going to cause re-traumatizing, because while it happens once to somebody, the story we tell ourselves and the replaying of it is what re-traumatizes. So you want to do it in very, very slow segments of getting the person very comfortable in their body and feeling emotions in their body. From there, then you want to start to sneak up on it. Don't go straight into the event, and to delayer it that way. The person who wrote this, hopefully you're going to listen to this video. We might direct message you and see if you would like to work with me on some of this stuff. So that is pretty awesome. So this is, we've been a longer class than we normally have. I love, love, love answering your questions. So please keep them coming. Please ask them. Much love to everyone. Stay safe. Have a great week, and we will talk again soon.